Hi, everyone. Mike Malatesta here, and welcome back to the How Did Happen podcast. On this podcast, I dig in deep with every guest to explore the roots of their success, to discover not just how it happened, but why it matters. My mission is to find and share stories that inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you. On today's episode, I'm talking to a man with a big, and I mean a really big, mission. He's founded 33 companies, he's a best-selling author, and in my opinion, he's a modern-day Michael Gerber, aka the E-Myth book, one of the most impactful books that I have read in my career. Tony DiSilvestro and I talk about being experienced creators, the difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur, side hustles, and why we're all in the 98.6 degree business. He means people, of course.
The thing is, when you start to realize that we're all in the same exact business, we're in the 98.6 degree business. That's the business we're in. We're all in the people business. So when you start to understand that as an entrepreneur, and it takes a long time to realize that. In my restaurants, I don't serve food. I create experiences with customers. In my construction companies, it's the same thing. In my marketing company, it's no different, right? So I'm working with all kinds of different businesses in marketing, but we're all going for the same exact person. I mean, the same process. We're looking for the result. What is the result that you're trying to accomplish? So for me to say, oh my God, find something you love and just stick with it and just go straight through that. No, it's never been me. I love people. And I love the people business.
This episode is sponsored by The Dream Exit. The Dream Exit is a private, bespoke program for successful entrepreneurs with annual revenue between $5 million and $100 million who realize that they have one chance to get their dream exit right, and that the odds of realizing that dream by themselves, all alone, or at the last minute are stacked against them. In less than 90 days, we teach you how to design, build, and execute a customized dream exit playbook that gets your business ready for sale at its maximum value and gets you ready to maximize your meaning and purpose in your post-exit life, even if today you are not ready to sell. You see, dream exits just don't happen. They're the result of early, professional, and proven planning. So if you're an entrepreneur with annual sales between 5 and 100 million, and you want to learn how to 10x to 100x your chances of achieving the dream exit you deserve, go to dreamexitplaybook.com today. I know you're going to enjoy Tony. Hello, Tony. Welcome to the How Did It Happen podcast.
Oh, hey, so glad to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this, and I think everyone that's listening is going to be happy that you've made the time to listen to Tony and I today, because what we're going to be sharing is stuff that you and I care about a lot. So I gave you a little teaser of what we talked about in the intro. Let me tell you a little bit more about Tony so that you can get as excited as I am. Tony DiSilvestro is a seasoned entrepreneur, business consultant, and sought-after keynote speaker with over 30 years of experience. With 33 successful businesses under his belt. I don't think they're all under your belt, right? There's some of them are still out there, right?
There's no doubt. I'm about 12 businesses right now, you know.
Okay. All right. Okay, good.
Keep rolling.
I want to get into those. So 33 successful businesses under his belt, ranging from construction to restaurants, to manufacturing, to SaaS companies, software as a service companies, and consulting, and employing over 450 people. As the founder of Tony D Talks, he has helped numerous entrepreneurs, CEOs, and company founders grow and scale their businesses with his fast-acting foundational approach. His expertise has been recognized by Forbes, who published his book, The Business Scaling Blueprint, and featured him as a respected expert on their website and blog. Tony is on a mission, get this, to empower 100 million companies worldwide to redefine their businesses for exponential growth within 5 years. So he's a small goal setter, obviously. Tony, let's get started. I just asked this simple question. How did it happen for you?
Sure, I can tell you. So where it happened was at 8 years old, I started my first business on the Jersey Shore. I grew up in a household. My dad was a cop, entrepreneur. My mother was an entrepreneur. And it was 4 months of hurry and 8 months of worry. So at 8 years old, I saw a need for people coming off the ocean front, off the beach. And I said, heck, I'm going to sell them candy bars and gum when they come off the beach. And My entrepreneurial journey kind of started there. And then at 20, 15, 19 years old, I kind of got into a partnership with a guy in a pizzeria. And then at 23, my wife and I, my girlfriend at that point, opened our first restaurant. And then it just kind of bloomed from there. We went into real estate, buying and selling properties, and just went into construction. And then, all the businesses that I've built have really been out of friction or need, so I found a company that hired a marketing company. They weren't doing marketing right, fired 4 or 5 marketing companies and said, heck, I'm just going to open up my own marketing agency and do it for myself. So that's really how my whole life has been structured, looking at businesses, looking at opportunities that can support my other businesses. And it's funny, people call them side hustles. I call them just another opportunity to open a business and test it first.
So tell me a little bit more about your mom and dad. So you said that they both had sort of, I guess, normal careers, but entrepreneurial on the side. What was going on there?
So my dad was a cop, as a kid. I mean, we grew up poor. We didn't have any money. My dad was, making like 17,000 a year as a police officer. They weren't making any money. And so he started buying rental properties and started renting out to people coming down to the shore for vacation. And then my mother was doing macrame on the side for the house. And so she decided to open up her own macrame shop. And so at 9 and 10 years old, I was selling Mexican pottery, little Italian kid on the beach in Jersey. And they put me in a sombrero, and my first sales job was at 9 years old. So I'm having to talk to strangers, having to really understand what a customer meant and the customer values. So, I had such an amazing education, and people over the years have asked me, why do you think you're successful? And I think it's honestly, I just had an opportunity where I grew up to learn the true value of a customer. What does a customer avatar mean? How do you make somebody happy? And at 9 and 10 years old, I was working 60 hours a week, making $10 a week. And it was the best education I could have possibly asked for.
And how do you sort of square up that experience to the experience that a lot of younger people, kids, have now, where not many of them are hustling at 9 or 10 years old, first off, and not many of them are hustling in a way where they actually have to talk to people and understand how people work. How do you square that up now with, the benefit of your experience?
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because of labor laws and stuff like that. Kids can't work at that age,
Yeah.
3 daughters, and I owned restaurants at that point when they were that age. So they all started working at 7 years old, but now they're 27, 26, and 23. And all 3 of them are entrepreneurs in different industries. But they gave them such a great advantage when they were young. They had to walk up to tables and talk to strangers. And at 9 years old, my daughter's bossing employees around. Hey, sweep that floor. Hey, do this. Hey, that doesn't go there. So, I mean, it was a huge advantage. I kind of gave them the same advantage, not realizing really at the time the advantage I was giving them, but it really made a difference in their life, their entrepreneurial life. But today, I don't think kids have that opportunity. I think it's really difficult. And where you see some of these young kids being really successful, you see them in sports, right? I think sports is great, especially in team sports like soccer or football, where they have to actually work as a team to accomplish a goal. And if entrepreneurship, I mean, that's what it really is. How well do we delegate? How well do we lean on each other, cross train, do these things in business?
And speaking of sports, let's go back to your growing up days. What kind of sports were you involved in, Tony?
It's almost like my entrepreneurial career. I played almost every sport, but wrestling was probably the most defining sport that I did. I found it to be I'm more of an independent, and you have to give me a huge task. But in wrestling, I was forced to wrestle. And in wrestling, it's an individual sport, but at the end of the day, it's still a team sport. So I was constantly trying to better myself for my own record and my own ability. But then, if I lost my match and then the team lost by 6 points, it was on my shoulders at that point. So I think it was a great opportunity for me to wrestling really fit my personality.
And your siblings, I'm assuming you got brothers or sisters. You're not from an Italian family with no brothers or sisters. So what were they like? What's going on with them when they were kids? What's going on with them now?
Yeah, I was the last born. So I had it was easy for me. My brother took the brunt of it. He's pretty introverted, not a risk taker. My sister's kind of the middle of the road, and I'm just that carefree, kind of kid that took risks. And I didn't get in trouble as much when I was young. So I could take that risk and get in trouble and, and blame it on my brother and my sister and just let me be free. And I think birth rate has a lot to do with it. I see a lot of last born children and families just being a little more carefree, a little more creative, and a little more of a risk taker for sure.
And probably a little less parented, right? Because, your parents it kind of wears on them after a while, right? You got
I don't have any pictures of me, and like my third daughter's my third daughter, I have 3 daughters. My third daughter's kind of funny. She's like, yeah, there's hardly any pictures of me either. I'm like, you just get so busy with life.
huh. So you brought up these early experiences, and when one led to the other sort of thing, and you were talking about pain and friction and solving those things. That's what an entrepreneur is built to do. It makes me wonder, and I'd really love your opinion on this advice that a lot of people give and a lot of people expect, which goes something like this. Find something you're passionate about and then commit to that passion. And that's sort of, you'll never work a day in your life sort of thing. It doesn't sound like that's, I mean, we've only been talking for a few minutes, but it doesn't sound like that's your belief system. But I don't know, is it?
If there's one thing I am, it's passionate, but I don't believe that. So when I coach businesses, I tell everybody, I said, it doesn't matter. They're like, how can you coach so many different types of businesses? I'm like, I'm coaching recruiting firms. I'm recruiting construction companies, all over the place. And the thing is, when you start to realize that we're all in the same exact business, we're in the 98.6 degree business. That's the business we're in. We're all in the people business. So when you start to understand that as an entrepreneur, and it takes a long time to realize that. In my restaurants, I don't serve food. I create experiences with customers. In my construction companies, it's the same thing. In my marketing company, it's no different, right? So I'm working with all kinds of different businesses in marketing, but we're all going for the same exact people. I mean, the same process. We're looking for the result. What is the result that you're trying to accomplish? And in any business, we start out with a thought process and then we develop a result. So for me to say, oh my God, find something you love and just stick with it and just go straight through that. No, it's never been me. I love people. And I love the people business. So for me to open up 33 different businesses, it was all the same exact business for me.
And this experience thing, I think a lot of people don't necessarily look at the way that they should, the power of creating a unique differentiating experience for customers and clients.
I'm called the experience creator because I go into companies. It's the number one thing I do. I walk into an architecture firm. I was mentoring them. I looked at all the people sitting behind these desks. They had like 20 employees, all drawing, all busy in their little cubicles. I'm like, what are these people doing? And they're like, oh, they're my designers. I said, well, go in tomorrow and change their name. Change their name on their badge and their business card and call them experience creators, because I want them to think differently. I want them to think about when they're designing a house, right? They're designing a house and they're saying, okay, where's this person going to have their coffee this morning? Is the sun going to come through the windows? What's the experience that this customer is going to get? Are you actually designing a house or are you designing a home? Mm-hmm. Because I want that designer to come across and come into work and say, I'm here to create experiences for the person that's actually going to live in this house. It doesn't matter that you can do something beautiful on a piece of paper, but how is the human being going to live in that experience that you're actually creating? So like even in a restaurant scenario, I don't have servers, I have experience creators. I can get anybody to serve food. It takes the talent to create an experience. So if you go into any business I go into, I don't care what business you're in, if you have experience creation in your mindset, when you're going into a business, when you're talking to your employees, are they actually creating experience? But you work on the finite details of what it means to create an experience. It's the smaller granular pieces.
Right. So important and so overlooked. And even in the example that you used, like, what do you call people? I've always been a believer that you create a language inside of your company that's different than what everybody else you're competing with is using, because I'd love to get your opinion on this, for the exact reason you said, well, they're not designers, they're experience creators. Because once you call somebody different than what the industry or the world has determined they are, I think they not only appreciate it, but it opens up something. Maybe it's small, but it opens up something that gets them thinking about, I'm not just a designer, right? And I look at so many businesses and they don't do that, right? They put everybody in a
box.
Yeah, thank you. They put them in a box and they call them what everybody else calls them, which to me is demeaning, first of all, or potentially demeaning. But second, it's restrictive, because everybody in the company is now thinking about themselves compared to somebody else in their industry that they compete with.
The funny thing is, like, one of my favorite one is a dishwasher in a restaurant. We call them aquatic engineers. And
Okay.
they're like, what? Because they are the most important people in the restaurant. So, but as a restaurateur, if you start out and you treat your dishwasher with that level of respect and that level of importance in your brand, it carries all the way through your brand. So
Right.
the construction site, the most important person is the person sweeping the floor, right? He's sweeping the floor. The homeowner comes into the house the next day to check out his house that's under construction. He steps on a board with a nail in it. Then he trips and he falls down the stairs. That guy sweeping the floors just became the most important person on the entire job site.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's one thing. So, like, I always look at every employee in every aspect of my business. Each piece is like a puzzle piece. So imagine if your lowest level employee that you don't treat well, you are missing one puzzle piece, and now you can't finish the puzzle. That
Right.
every single person has the same value no matter what, but it's how we create, and like what you're saying is how we communicate with them, how we make them feel when they come into work every day. Are they passionate? Do they bleed the culture? Do they want to come to work? So many
Yeah.
employees
Sure.
are miserable. Companies don't train their employees nearly enough. And it's amazing that we don't invest in our employees. So what you'll hear me say all the time is I haven't hired an employee in 30 years. I invest in every single one of them. Because as entrepreneurs, when we invest in employees, say you hire an employee, you expect an investment back from that employee, as well as they expect to be paid. But as entrepreneurs, we want that employee to provide us something. And if you're not making an investment when you hire them, then how could you ever expect them to invest in you?
Right. Right. It's a whole, people don't care about you until they know you care about them. Right? It's
100%.
like, huh. It's
You
funny.
knew day one. I mean, I established that from day one. Every time I sit with an employee, I ask them, I'm saying, I'm going to make an investment in you. Are you going to make an investment in me? And what does that mean to you?
Right. That dishwasher thing you brought up made me think, because I've heard a lot of restaurant people talk about that a lot differently. They talk about the dishwasher dungeon. That's the place where you have to prove yourself if you're ever going to get a real job in this organization. And it always it reminded me of like, I can't stand when people call like the people sweeping the floor on the construction site a laborer. I can't stand that, because like, who are you to call that person a laborer? They're not, like you said, they're the most important cog in the wheel, maybe not every day, every minute, but a lot of days, a lot of minutes. And the dishwashers are the same thing. And I never could quite understand why people choose to, degrade. Yeah. Why? I wonder what.
It's just because, I call it eating your young, right? So like a wolf, so employees that have been trained, they've been a seasoned employee, that they're 10 to 15 years, they forget what it was like on that first day. So I constantly remind people, whether I'm talking about customer service or I'm talking about employees, we always forget those first days of our life, whether we're opening the first day we opened our businesses, the first time we were an employee. So a big thing with my coaching, when I work with businesses, I reverse engineer every single aspect of your business. If you want to grow a business, you've got to go backwards. You've got to take it back to those beginning days. What made you special? But that's where you start to look at employees. When most people start out in business, they don't have the mindset to actually treat employees properly, or actually even have this thought process, this high level thought process we're talking about. It seems simplistic what we're talking about.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Entrepreneur, we don't have time to think about that in the first 2, 3, 4 years. We don't come out of the womb being this great delegator and like, hell, this is how you treat people. And this, it doesn't happen that way. It's not until you lose hundreds of employees, or, that employee's out back crying, and like, how you have to talk them through life, and they're talking about, but you still need them to perform. So all that experience really builds you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking, or you as the entrepreneur get so burned out, frustrated, disappointed, whatever, you end up quitting, or you end up hating what you created. And the reason you hate what you created is because what you created, you're not doing anymore. You're doing all the other stuff, right?
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
You bring up a valid point, and corporate fatigue's huge, right? But it's, how do you cross over from being a business owner to an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Unfortunately today, like, they're teaching entrepreneurship, and these kids coming out of college, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. No, you're going to be a business owner. Just go be a business owner first. Learn what the craft is. Learn what you think you're exceptional at, and then work on becoming an entrepreneur after that. And the quicker you can close that gap, So I walk into a lot of business. I can't tell you how many businesses I go in. They're doing 5 million, 6 million, 10 million. I got a guy doing 100 million. He's doing $100 million a year right now, and he's a business owner.
Hmm.
And my whole purpose of working with him is to bring him over to becoming an entrepreneur. And so I do that so often, but it does take a long time sometimes.
So let's explore that a little bit more, because I'm not sure that everybody listening understood the distinction that you were making there. So let's define, in your terms, the distinction between a business owner and an entrepreneur first, and then let's talk about how you cross that chasm or bridge that gap or whatever it is that you call it, to have that evolution towards being an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I'm a great framer. I cut hair better than anybody. I'm a great technician, right? I'm unbelievable. I'm the best framer on the job. I can cut hair better than anybody. I'm not making this owner all this money. So what happens is you say, hey, I'm going to start a business. Well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, they think. But what happens is they go into business and they're cutting more hair than they ever have. They're paying the bills, cutting the hair, hiring people, doing all this, sitting behind a barber chair. But it's not until they realize how to delegate and then become an entrepreneur. Once they actually understand the art of delegation, that's when you start to have the crossover to being an entrepreneur. If you want to scale and grow a business, you need to master delegation. And when I say master delegation, and I know so many people on your podcast have probably heard people talk about delegation. I'm not talking about the delegation that people know. Oh, you just get a task and you give it to somebody. I'm talking about, let's go from the follow through. Let's go from the last process of delegation and reverse engineer it. Start looking at yourself as an owner. When somebody's failing, are you criticizing yourself or are you criticizing the employee? Because I'm telling you right now, 98% of all business owners criticize the employee first. And I always tell them, go put a mirror in your back room and go look at yourself. When you have a mistake or a problem or there's friction, look at yourself first and create a system, process, and procedure that's going to stop that from happening again.
Right. It's funny, right? We all want to hold other people accountable, but we don't necessarily want to be held accountable ourselves.
No doubt.
Yeah. My partner and I would always say, one thing we have to accept here, just flat out, is we have 100% responsibility for whatever happens here. We may not be 100% responsible because some people you can't control, whatever, but the responsibility for it nonetheless is ours.
To your point right there, I love what you're saying. But ultimately, it may not be my fault 100% because they did something, but who hired them?
Yeah, right.
But ultimately, I'll go back to day one and say, well, you hired them. There was something. Ultimately, it is 100% the responsibility of that entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, I've hired 20 to 30,000 employees in my life. At the end, those employees aren't with me anymore.
Right.
I'm the only one still standing. So the growth in the process of my company, I'm surrounding myself with greatness every single day. But if you see businesses that go from 1 million to 5 million, from 5 million to 10, from 10 to 20, and 20 to 100, say, if you took a corporate picture of the C-suite of every single level, I guarantee you, probably the only person left in those pictures is the founder of the company. Because the people that take you from 1 million to 5 are going to be different than the people that take you from 5 to 10.
Yeah.
From the people that take you from 10 to 20, because it's all mindset, right? Because you as an entrepreneurs are wild-eyed, man. They're thinking like crazy, man. They're visionaries, right? And people cannot typically keep up with them. So you have to surround yourself with people with your vision and your thought processes.
Right. And in every one of those stages, in every one of those pictures, even of the founder might look the same, might look like it's the same person, but there has been a growth and evolution.
Yeah, you lose hair.
Huge. And well, yeah, you do. I cover my loss of hair up with the hat for today, but yes, that's a great point. It's the very, 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 very rare that that an executive team, for example, can start at one level and just keep being able to continue to make those leaps. It's like almost impossible, exceptionally rare.
I agree.
Just back to the Jersey Shore for a second. Where on the Jersey Shore? I'm from Philly originally, so I'm a little familiar with the Jersey Shore.
Wildwood Crest, down the shore.
Wildwood Crest. Okay, yeah.
Always from Springfield, Delaware County.
Oh, okay. I'm from Havertown.
Yeah, so she made a mistake and came to the beach for a weekend, and at 15 years old, and that was it. So
okay, nice. Yeah, I wouldn't spend. When I was a kid, we'd go to Stone Harbor, Avalon, Sea Isle City. Sure. I think I have those names right. It's been a long time since I've been there, but
Yeah, that's where my pizza career started as a young kid. And that's where my parents owned a macrame shop. So at 8, 9 years old, and then I had every kind of job you can imagine. I was selling fruits and vegetables off of the back of a truck at 11 and 12, and then started in the restaurant business at 13, washing dishes. So had a horrible first experience in the restaurant business with a very tough owner. But it didn't deter me. It just made me work harder and harder. So,
What was it like? Tell me about that experience.
there's a guy treated me like that dishwasher, that I came back every day and he was just screaming at me, no matter how hard I was working. He was just, nothing was ever good enough. And
yeah,
really, I had a lot of those examples in my life, whether it be through parenting, my dad and mom, and some of my bosses. I said, I will never be that boss. I'll never be that person, and then I never wanted to be that owner of a restaurant too. That it was just the first business I really was in full time, hardcore. And I never wanted to be that. And I look at restaurant owners that are 70, 80 years old, still standing behind the counter with an apron on. I'm like, no, that is not the right way to do it. And,
right.
I've been blessed to not have a high propensity to be an entrepreneur and take that risk, and then I really didn't say, oh my gosh, it was like a calculated risk. Well, I'm going to go open a business and I have this risk. I said, there's a really big need for this. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to try and create a side hustle and just go. I don't like when people bag side hustles, because I think side hustles are what's made me who I am today. I had a primary business supporting my family, paying my mortgage on my house. And then I tried this separate business without sacrificing or taking a risk to sacrifice the rest of everything I had at that time.
I think they're smart. I don't think it's side hustle. I think sometimes people use the term for something that, like, they think it's like sleazy or whatever, what the person is doing, right? There's nothing. I think it's smart. I mean, try it. Right.
The biggest problem is if you say you're a person, you're sitting at home and you don't have a business, right? You had a 9-to-5 job and you have a stable income. And then you start to open a business and you remortgage your house, you cash in your 401k, extremely dangerous. That's not the side hustle I'm talking about.
No.
I'm talking about if you're already an entrepreneur, you have a sustainable business, you're doing great, and you find a like kind business possibly that supports your business, that's a great side hustle. But I see too many people try and become an entrepreneur without having experience in the business they're actually going into. And that's dangerous, right? So if you want to fly an F-18, you're not going to go into the military and say, sign me up today, I'm going to jump in an F-18. You're going to have 2.5 years, 3 years of practice and classrooms and everything. And then possibly you'll be able to fly an F-18. And entrepreneurship's the same exact way. Go work for that company, find out, go work for the most successful whatever business you can imagine. If you want to be a general contractor, go work for one of the biggest contracting companies out there, and then go work for a small one, that's struggling to pay their payroll every week, and talk to the owner, see what the problems are before you go take that risk and risk your life.
What do you think, for business owners or entrepreneurs that already have an established business, who do what you just said? They go and they get into something they know nothing about, because they have an established business that's been successful. Maybe they think, well, must just be me, whatever I touch, sort of thing. Well, how have you avoided that, I guess? Because 33 businesses, I'm thinking you've got to have something where you were like, oh, I could do this, know nothing about it. And it turned out to be tougher than you thought.
What's interesting about that, the businesses I knew nothing about, I did actually pretty well. Like photography and stuff like that was just a hobby. And I opened a photography studio, opened the ice cream parlor. It was good. But it was I had more trouble with businesses I knew. The thing I knew, I opened up a wholesale bakery and distributed the entire state, like 140 locations. But the mistake I made there was I was emotional. I found a baker that was unbelievable, 4 kids. And I thought, God, I want to help this guy. He's 38 years old. He's in debt. I thought, hey, this guy's an amazing baker. But I made an emotional decision to open a business with him. And I started doing drugs, sleeping with every employee, and cost me $500,000. You know what I mean? But I was young and I was emotional. I want to help people. And that's the characteristic of who I am and why I want to help entrepreneurs all over the world. But I made an emotional decision, and, I lost another restaurant. So I'd love to say that, it's not just a business that you maybe take a risk, but I'm way more calculated after those 2 massive losses in my life. I really study it. I talk to accountants. I talk to lawyers. I talk to other people that are in that business, in that type of business. I want to know the problems. I don't want to know your successes. It's like somebody that gambles. You say, oh my God, they tell you about the casino. They always tell you about what they win, but never what they, I want to know what you lose.
Yeah.
I was always that kind of kid. I was always talking to people 10, 15, 20 years older than me. All my friends are typically 10 years older than me, but I've always surrounded myself with wisdom, so, I know I'm not perfect. None of us are, I made huge mistakes in my life, but it's made me who I am today. I don't regret a day I've lived because what I know today is because of my failures and my successes in life.
Yeah. Very smart. So with these 33 businesses under your belt, as I said at the beginning, and I know the coaching consulting business is one of those. I think you count that as one of those, but I'm just thinking, like, I don't think I could do that, Tony. I don't think I could have, however, you said 12 businesses that are maybe still active and commit to, helping 100 million companies redefine their business for growth in the next 5 years. Like, where's the bandwidth for this come from? And why are you not just sort of like, hey, I got my own businesses to worry about here. They can have exponential growth, perhaps. Tell me about what's going on inside of there that makes this you.
Number 168 is
168. Okay, I'm going to say no. I don't know what 168 is.
You probably sleep 50 hours a week, right?
Yes.
About average people sleep 50 hours a week. You have 118 hours a week to get it done.
Uh-huh.
My passion in life, 6 years ago, I'll give you the quick story. I went to a university and I was teaching an entrepreneur class, and I came home after the first day. I was questioning what was my purpose in life, I'm like, I can do anything, right? I can do electrical, plumbing, build, finance, doesn't matter. I really am that type of person. I really believe I can do anything. And I went to that class, taught my first class. I said, I'm on this planet to teach and give back. And, from founding 33 different companies, I've had so much experience with employees and problem solving and solutions. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing in life if I'm not giving my God-given talent back to other people. And that's what's driven me to be that person. And that's my whole next season of my life will be giving back to entrepreneurs. For me, when I drive past a store that's closed, it's not Mary's that closed. Mary saved 10 years to open that business. Mm. Now she lost it after 2 years. Now for the next 10 years, she's going to be in debt, unbelievable debt, because she took a risk. And there's no reason to lose that business if they purely understand the business fundamentals. How do I close the gap from being a business owner to an entrepreneur faster, right? It doesn't need to take 10 years. It took me 15 years to figure out how to become an entrepreneur. I thought I was the best pizza man in the world and nobody was going to stop me. I thought I was the best contractor in the world. And I drive an F-350 and I used to have tools all over my truck. Today, I drive an F-350. I don't have a tool in my truck and I won't put a tool in my truck because that's not what a business owner and an entrepreneur is, right? I might as well just go be a framer.
Right.
So the biggest thing is what drives me. I truly, truly had to come to the realization of my purpose in life. And when you're given a talent, if we're not using it, what are we doing? I don't know what purpose of life is. And maybe that's my crazy mind, but I truly feel like I'm a blessed man and I want to give it back to people.
Take me through the process of how you came up with this mission, the one I just read, which is, if it's still your mission. How did you come up with it? How did you put numbers to it? How do you anticipate achieving it?
Sure. So I'm a Forbes author. So my book's in every airport. January 1st, my book will be in every airport all over the entire country. So my goal is to inspire people to pick up my book, read my book, give it to somebody else, give it to another entrepreneur. And then I'll be speaking all over the country. I have a couple of agencies I work with, and I really want to just get on as many 200 stages a year and get out there and just be in front of 1,000 people at a time and just kind of keep rolling. And then I do group coaching with people. So like I'll group coach a lot of people every year and just kind of continue that path. And my biggest thing is to become infectious, right? So I don't want to just be the one coaching. I want to have people teach other entrepreneurs. I want to create this infectious group of people that just go out to help each other. Because I always often say entrepreneurship is the loneliest profession in the world. Because when we're entrepreneurs, We never want to let another entrepreneur know, oh my God, we're failing. Oh, I can't make payroll. We're so afraid to do that. But the thing that entrepreneurs need to do, they need to tell each other. They need to talk to each other. Because here's the difference with a CEO and an entrepreneur. When I'm a CEO and I'm not doing well, I can walk down the hallway. I can talk to somebody in finance. I can talk to the marketing person. I have a team of people all around me. My responsibilities are extremely limited. But when you're an entrepreneur, you wear every single hat.
Mm-hmm.
When you really cross over to an entrepreneur is when you start peeling hats off. But as a business owner, I'm wearing every single hat in my company. And that's not the way. So if I can take that and show people a path, how to help entrepreneurs all over the world. And like, obviously I'm one human being, but I'm going to infect a ton of people and get them out there and to help each other. When I'm speaking at a conference, I make everybody around each other talk to each other. Hey, do you know that person next to you? They're actually an entrepreneur. They're actually just like you. Talk to them. Find out what their problems are. And the more we do that, the more we will make a difference in this world.
This different distinction you just drew between entrepreneurs and CEOs. The thing that came into my mind as well is that a lot of CEOs, not all, but a lot of CEOs have boards too that hold them accountable, right? There's like, they know if they have a good board, they know where they stand. They know how their performance is. They know how the company's performance is. A lot of entrepreneurs don't do that.
Lonely.
It's lonely, and it's sort of a system that's set up where it's like, you're doing great, Tony. Everything's great, right? We're not going to tell you anything's bad because it's just, so it's hard to get unfiltered information as well. And most don't, I don't know. Do you subscribe to companies, entrepreneurs, business owners having boards to help them with these kinds of things, or advisory groups? I know you're a member of EO.
Not many companies have the ability to have a board,
I guess, right. Small.
But joining organizations, finding a mentor and a coach, gosh, I wish I would have done it way before. Like, I've hired multiple coaches now in my life, but it wasn't until I was 15, 20 years in business. And I know today, and I don't regret a day I lived, but I know if I had a coach 20 years ago, I would have probably been in a different position. I wouldn't know what I know. I'd be in a different position for sure. And I think that entrepreneurs need to surround themselves with other entrepreneurs, not be afraid to walk into that coffee shop and say, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Go to somebody that's in your profession. Offer them, buy them lunch. Every entrepreneur, the craziest part is every entrepreneur loves to talk about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's true.
We're afraid to do it.
Yeah, very true. The delegation, and so I have two questions. One, we talked a little bit about delegation earlier, and I mean, the bottom line is it's something that's very simple to say and can be very challenging to do. And people will say, you just got to delegate that stuff to, and free yourself up. But I think the part that often, and I'm imagining you coach on this a lot, the thing that's often missing is, I don't know how to delegate. And so as a result, I try to delegate because people tell me it makes sense and intellectually I get it, but then it never works out. So there's an awareness and a skill to delegating, right? It's not like something you can just say, well, this is what's in my mind, so go do it, right? People aren't set up to work that way.
An interesting piece with that is I never go into a business and teach delegation.
Okay.
I walk in, I start out with who's your brand, what do you do, who's your customer? Then I go into systems, right?
Got it.
To develop systems, because if I'm going to delegate something, I need to make sure it's ironclad system, because I can't delegate it if I don't know how to set a proper expectation. And then after delegation, I go into training. Okay, we're going to train, right? You're delegating, right? Now I'm going to make sure that your systems and your delegation is finite. I make sure that training system is unbelievable. So I'd love to say that I can walk in and just say, okay, I'm going to create systems. But if I don't know the purpose and the process, what my brand actually stands for, I can't create a system. Mm-hmm. So every piece that I teach, like if you read my book's written like a textbook, because at any given point of your business, you're going to pick up chapter 7. You're going to pick up chapter 4, because at different times in business, when we grow, we're going to have a problem with delegation at say 5 million, but we're going to master the delegation by 10. But then when we get from 5 and we want to go to 10, now we have to redo all of our systems because they don't work.
Right.
So when I wrote my book, I wrote it with the mindset that I want the entrepreneur, the CEO, or somebody to pull it off the shelf and pick where you're having your problem and go read it again. Because I reverse engineer businesses, right? Because I said, okay, what is your goal? I want to go to $1 billion. This guy's doing 200 million a year in construction. He wants to go to $1 billion. I'm like, okay, let's strip down your entire company and go back to the beginning. What made you great? So another example I'll give you real quick. Imagine the first customer that walked into Starbucks. How do you think they were treated? Very first Starbucks.
Pretty well.
Oh my God, the owner's there. I mean, probably the red carpet went out. Oh my God, you're our first customer. It's amazing. They were greeted at the door. Everybody was like, oh my God, how's your coffee? You walk into Starbucks now, nobody comes out to me when I'm sitting down on the couch. How's your coffee? Not one person asked me that, but we forget what that is. We forget the first days. We forget what it is to scale and grow your business. And entrepreneurs, as we were business owners in the beginning, when we become an entrepreneur, if we could remember that, I tell my employees every day, today's the first day we've ever unlocked our doors. How are you going to make a difference? And I train it all the time. And like you said, you can't just go in and teach somebody delegation because it drives me crazy a little bit. Oh my God, all you need to do is delegate. Yeah. If you don't have the proper system, you don't know what your company stands for, you don't know what the customer believes your customer stands for, or your employees think your customer stands for, there's no way you can delegate. You'll fail every single time.
Very true.
Yeah.
So we glossed over what you said. I just want to go back to it. Your book, which unfortunately I have not read yet, but I will. The Business Scaling Blueprint is going to be in airports all over the US in January, you said.
January, probably at the first week of January, 270 airports.
270. Congratulations, man. That is awesome.
Thank you. I was in 70 originally, and then my book sold so well. They're like, hey, we want you in all our airports. So it worked out really well. But my book's on Amazon. It's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? But my biggest thing is, how can I impact the world?
Yeah.
And, entrepreneurship, when you've opened as many businesses and had as many employees as I had, you have such a crazy desire. And it doesn't matter how long I'm in business. I have a couple of businesses right now that are like dying with the recession and just really struggling. But what's the best part about it? It just makes you a better entrepreneur. And once you've gone through 3-4 recessions, you know how to tighten that buckle.
Yeah.
You need to look at every single expense, man. You're like looking at every little detail, and that's where, like, most of the entrepreneurs I have around me have never seen a recession right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's scary. The failure rate in entrepreneurship is so high. There's very few people that have seen a real recession because it's been 14 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Long time. You do you consider yourself to be like the modern day Michael Gerber with E-Myth, the E-Myth book? Because a lot of what you say kind of reminds me of some of the things that I remember from reading that book early on.
Read that book so long ago, I can't even remember.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I mean, that's a compliment, by the way. That's a real compliment. I'm not, that's what it sounds like you are. You're this person who is, extremely experienced, extremely talented, and you're basically taking everything that you know, and you're going to people and you're saying, look, you got the passion for what you're doing. You have the commitment for what you're doing. What you're missing is the system, right? What you're missing is you don't need to have a 10-year education on this. I can give you the 10-year education in like however long, much less time, so that you're not struggling with the same things over and over and over again and not making any progress.
There's no doubt. And, I really appreciate that compliment. But my whole vision is like, we like to overcomplicate businesses. We overcomplicate them. But if we go back to the basics and we can understand, and I'll go back to it again. When we start businesses, we didn't have that education. But then all of a sudden you get into business long enough and you start forgetting. So it's just reminding people, hey,
yeah,
I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I work with. And you said it earlier, they're fatigued. They're tired of being the head of sales. They're tired of being the head of marketing. I'm like, why are you the head of marketing? Why are you the head of sales? You're never going to grow your business. I got a guy doing $6 million a year and he's like, I want to grow, but he can't grow.
Right.
And the thing is, if you go back to the fundamentals of the business, I don't care. It may be one of the 8 that I teach. It's not necessarily always one, so it's going back, working in that book, Good to Great. That's another great book. And I love all of them, but I'm a bad book reader. I'll admit it. I like read the first 3 chapters. And once I get the understanding of it, that's why I didn't write my book that way. I wrote my book with specific chapters that you can go to. But once I get the gist of a book, I kind of get the feeling like Who Not How is a great book.
Yeah. Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy. Yeah.
Great book, you know what I mean? But once I read the first couple of tabs, I'm like, I get it because I do it every day,
Yeah.
you know. But if we can change the world in entrepreneurship and give people an opportunity to be successful and not have to kill themselves in their own business, I mean, gosh, go sure, I work a ton, you know what I'm saying? But it's because I've chosen to have more than one business, right? But
Right.
if you're an entrepreneur and you have this dream, you're going to have weekends off and you're going to have all the money in the world that you can do whatever you want to do. That's possible. But you need a right mentor and the right person. Surround yourself with greatness. I say it all the time.
Yeah. So let's tackle a tough subject here. You've talked a lot about how, business needs systems, and that's a key to growing. You need different systems as you grow, reach different levels. You talked a little bit about this partnership you had with the baker that turned into a big problem. And I wonder, in your experience, Tony, many business owners / entrepreneurs have partners,
right,
who may or may not be aligned, who may or may not be supportive of one another, may or may not be, you insert whatever possibilities there might be. How do you, it's hard to improve systems in a business when you have owners who are divergent, perhaps, in their thinking. One is all into what you're teaching, the other's like, how do you, because I struggle with this, like, how do you overcome that? How do you work your way through it?
So it's funny you say that. I was on the phone yesterday with one of my clients, and her partner is 2 months ago said she doesn't know if she wants to work here. And yesterday the partner says, I'm quitting. And then the next day the partner comes into work. So this lady I'm coaching, and she goes, what do I do? I'm like, have a realistic conversation with her. Why are you torturing yourself? We don't need to do this. You know what I'm saying? You have to have these hard conversations. I've had very difficult partnerships when I was younger, and I franchised my entire restaurant group because of it. Because I knew there had to be a system, a process that nobody else could challenge. This is the way we do things. But partnerships are definitely different. I'm in partnership with my brother. My brother's very conservative. So I'm more the fire. So it was always hard. I wanted to run. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's get a couple buckets of water. And it's very, very difficult. But over the years, I've had to have extremely difficult conversations. But you have to realize life is short. We're only on this planet for a very short time. Mm-hmm. You have to make a decision. The quality of life that you're looking for. Is this relationship? Am I destroying a friendship? Because a lot of times it's a friendship or a marriage. I'm destroying this over a business. What are we doing? What is the purpose? I was just in Greece, and it's a funny story. I'm walking around with my wife, and I'm like, gosh, 5,000 years old. I'm looking at a storefront. I'm like, how many entrepreneurs were in that storefront?
Right. In history, right? Yeah.
You'd be a piece of dust if you were an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. And the thing that I said to her, I said, what are we doing in life? I said, what are we doing? I said, entrepreneurs need to enjoy themselves. They need to love what they're doing every day. If you're not loving what you're doing, open a different business. If your partner's making you crazy, have a heart to heart and say, hey, how can we make this work? If you can't make it work, find something that's going to fulfill your life. Because if we're not happy in life, all we're doing is wasting time. We need to get out there as an entrepreneur. You're blessed to have taken the risk. I tell business owners all the time. I'm like, hey, what's your gross revenue? She goes, I'm doing 50,000 a year. I'm like, amazing. I'm like, you're a business owner. I said, do you know how many people actually have the nerve or the guts to open a business? But I said, love what you do every day. And I'm telling you, some of the businesses I talk to are doing 150,000 a year. They're some of the happiest entrepreneurs I know. But they love what they're doing. Maybe they don't have 100 employees at that point, making them crazier, but honestly, partnerships are very, very tricky. And I tell people all the time when they're in business and they want to take on an equity part, they want to take on a partner and give away equity. I'm like, the last thing you want to do not make a hasteful move giving away your equity. That partner's got to bring more to the table than you before you give away equity. And so many times, entrepreneurs, we get desperate or we think we need help or we need somebody and they say, oh, well, this guy's going to help me and I'm going to give him 50% of the business. I'm like, all right, stop. What are you doing? Wait a minute. What are they bringing to the table? Because people don't understand the intellectual property that you took to start that business, the risk that you took You're just going to let somebody come in after you put all that hard work, money, capital, intellectual property that you used, and you're just going to let somebody walk in and give them 50%? They need to bring a whole lot more to the table. They need to be able to help you get to that next level. If you're bringing in a partner, take it that. Or if you have a partner that you're struggling with, have that tough conversation, because being happy in entrepreneurship is critically more important to me than anything you do.
Yeah. Why is it so hard to have difficult conversations, Tony? What?
Because we're emotional people. You know what I mean? We're 98.6 degrees, and that's a negative side of that, but in business, we need emotions. We need empathy. We need compassion with our people, but it's a double-edged sword for sure. But when you have a conversation and an emotional decision with somebody, and they know that your heart felt, that you care about them, if you come across that way. But if you come across that all you cared about money and you're tired of splitting 50% with them and you can't stand them, you're in for a battle.
Yeah.
But,
and the longer you wait to have those kinds of conversations, it seems to me, the longer the entitlement of whatever those divergencies are, the stronger that it can become, right? So when you finally do have the conversation, it's like a world war instead of, just a frank, honest discussion.
You're a business owner and you have a partner, you have to have goal meetings all the time. I like quarterly goals. So if you set your quarterly goals and you start identifying that your goals aren't aligned, now you can start having those conversations more frequently, for sure.
Yeah.
So many entrepreneurs I talk to, they never talk to their partners, or they're remote, or I'm like, I don't care what you do. Get on a plane, get on a Zoom, do something. Make sure you're in alignment. If your partner, maybe you love working 100 hours a week. Maybe your partner wants to work 20. Well, that's a problem.
Can definitely be a problem. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But maybe it's not a problem. Maybe you want to work 100 hours a week and you don't care if he works at all, because you can't stand his opinion anyway. So yeah, go work 10 hours a week. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that going on. It's when you split the money 50-50 that it starts to be like, well, wait a second. That doesn't seem, I'd be totally happy if you never came here anymore, but I'm not going to, but it would be more happy if I got all the money, you never came and you got none.
And money's an interesting thing. So, I've never been focused on money ever in my life. It's always been a tool or a hammer for me.
Yeah. Well, it's always a byproduct of what you're doing too. If you're doing the right things, it should come, and you shouldn't have to. Yeah, it shouldn't have to worry about it.
I love that. I say that exact thing all the time. I'm like, if you're working on money and you want to, I love when these young entrepreneurs, I'm like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? I want to be rich. I'm like, then don't be an entrepreneur.
Right.
That's not what we're doing.
There's better ways to get rich.
Heck yeah. Especially in a restaurant. That was the hardest.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
I got put in the restaurant business first. I think it would just help me build my iron,
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned your 3 daughters early on, and you said all three are entrepreneurs. Tell me a little bit about what they're up to.
Wow. When you talk alpha females, my daughters are so crazy strong, and it's classic. Firstborn is very structured, CEO minded. She has an upper mobility training system. It's called Employee Launch. We basically take 50 employees 52 weeks a year of training. We start through predictive interviewing. It's just an amazing system. So it really forces employers to sit down with their employees, actually communicate, create culture in the brand. But it's an amazing company. So we built it out. I built it out of scratch, and then my daughter came along with me and put it, as a young person would, computerized the whole thing and made it into a SaaS company, and it's just been unbelievable. So she's really just a hyper focused, organized person. So it's perfect for the training company. Then my middle daughter, she's 26. Went to buy some necklace her freshman year in college and said, I'm not paying $80 for that necklace. Started making them on campus. Started her own little business making knotted jewelry. Now she's in 80 locations all over the country, has a brick and mortar store, makes her own jewelry, customized jewelry, custom clothing. I mean, she's just everywhere. She's unbelievable. Crazy. Nice. She's that crazy entrepreneur daughter, just wild hair, and just, she's like, Dad, I'm going to go through that wall. I'm like, that wall's made out of brick. I'm like, slow down. She goes, I don't care, Dad, I'm going. And she just runs. It doesn't matter. And then my youngest is a creative one like me. So she's creative, innovative, very entrepreneurial minded, owns her own graphic design firm. She's in Manhattan. So just graphic. She's graduated Virginia Tech with graphics design, architecture degree. And she's just full of life and inspiring people.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's really fun having 3 entrepreneurs. My dinner tables are a little crazy though.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll bet you're getting a lot of questions at you too. It sounds like a very symbiotic relationship. I like it. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of arguing and opinions, and so it's all good. It's an Italian family still. We're still arguing. We eat pasta every Sunday, and so it's kind of constant fighting and just having fun. And just we always say that, hey, we're not talking about business, and in 2 minutes everybody's talking business, and
right.
That's great.
Well, Tony, it's been so fun to talk to you. You got this smile on your face the whole time you're talking. You can just tell that you're living what you should be doing.
Thank you.
I do want to give you an opportunity to. Is there anything that I haven't asked you, or you'd like to leave with our audience before we go?
No, just the biggest thing for me is just love what you do. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to be a jail or a prison sentence. Love what you do every day. Go in there, change your systems. Really, just take a look at what you're doing every day. Go look in that mirror in your back room and say, is this my goal? Is this where I want to be in life? And if it's not, change it. Find somebody that can help you do that. I don't care if it's the entrepreneur down the street. Go talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be the loneliest profession. Get out there and do it. And I just can't tell everybody, just being a business owner and an entrepreneur, you've already done it. You're already there. So congratulations. And it's been a pleasure being with you today.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. So, Tony, thank you. Everyone that's listening, hey, I hope you got something very valuable out of this. I know you got something very valuable out of this because we talk about this all the time. So I just want to remind you as we go, please maximize the greatness that's inside of you today. And until next time. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show. And before you go, I just have 3 requests for you. 1, if you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing or following the podcast on whatever podcast platform you prefer. If you're really into it, leave me a review, write something nice about me, give me 5 stars or whatever you feel is most appropriate. Number 2, I've got a book. It's called Ownership: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. It's an Amazon bestseller. And I'd love for you to read it or listen to it on Audible or wherever else, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it everywhere. If you're looking for inspiration that will help you unlock your greatness and potential, order or download it today so that you can have your very own copy. And if you get it, please let me know what you think. Number 3, my newsletter. I do a newsletter every Thursday, and I talk about things that are interesting to me or I give more information about the podcast and the podcast guests that I've had and the experiences that I've had with them. You can sign up for the podcast today at my website, which is my name, MikeMalatesta.com. You do that right now, put in your email address, and you'll get the very next issue. The newsletter is short, thoughtful, and designed to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you.